You're on the line with Jamal Meeks, former Indiana Hoosier, number 23, 1992. And I'm on the beat with Jim Cole.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry.
By your side, girl, you really got me now. You got me so I can't sleep at
Welcome
night.
back to Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle Leary coming to you here on this Wednesday from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, powered by Rivals. Make sure you go to thehoosier.com for complete coverage of the Indiana Hoosiers as Justin Smith has entered his name into the draft. We've talked about that. Kevin Brockway from CNHI Papers is sitting in with us today as Todd's off. Going to be joined by Kirk Haston here in a little bit, the governor. Going to join us, Kevin. But, yeah, that the NCAA is expected to make some kind of an announcement. I was reading off of Brett McMurphy's tweet, Kevin, that they're expected to pass these resolutions till to take effect next academic school year, I think, for the 21-22 school year. All right, so we're joined by Kevin for Kirk Haston, right? The governor, Kirk. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How are y'all today?
Cannot complain, man. How are things down in Tennessee?
It just different. Trying to make the best of it. We're slowly reopening a few businesses this week, but mainly still a lot of staying at home and trying not to go too crazy. I think that my yard is about as mowed as it's going to get, and my garage is about as clean as it's going to get. So it's I'm anxious to do some other things.
If you've been living under a rock, of course, I effectively call Kirk Haston the governor. Of course, he is probably the next governor of Tennessee one day, but currently a representative down there taking care of his people. So he's one of the few people that we talk to that are actually on the front lines dealing with this stuff. That's got to be really difficult having to deal with the public, the constituency, because these are answers that none of us really have.
Yeah, and whatever decisions are made, it's any governor right now, it's just not a very enviable position. It's tough because whichever decisions you make, you're impacting so many people. If you're reopening businesses, it's great for our business owners and our economy, of course. But then you have a lot of the healthcare professionals that are questioning that decision and vice versa. So it's tough. We're trying to do it in some phases and try to be as smart about it as we can. But yeah, my days, I've already been talking with some people this morning that are wondering when our barbershops and salons are going to open up. And so it's been a lot of emails and calls, especially at the beginning of the week, and then it kind of starts dying down by Thursday or Friday, and then it gears back up at the beginning of the next week.
Hey, Kirk, Kevin Brockway. Indiana, I think they announced that they're going to start to do random testing around the state. What is the test plan for Tennessee, right now that you know of? Well,
Governor Lee announced that they're going to start ramping up testing, with this reopening, and I think that he's stated in one of his last press conferences that in the next couple of weeks they're trying to get up to around 100 to 200,000. I think it was 200,000 new tests done to see where we're at. And we've set up a lot of free testing sites in the state. There's one Sunday in a county adjacent to mine, and they're trying to space the free testing sites out where you're getting a really good sample of the demographic and just really staying on top of the trends, because it looks like that what we're looking for is there's two big answers in all this, and that's a vaccine or herd immunity. And in the meantime, we've got to have some pretty safe measures in there to make sure that our hospitals aren't inundated with cases. So it's just something like I've never seen before. I'm watching more daytime television than I think that I ever have in my entire life. And if I can go on one small game show tangent, I didn't know this was going to come out of me, but all right, it's really just a sign that how long you've been in quarantine when you're upset your DVR forgot to record Deal or No Deal on the Game Show Network, because that from 10 years ago, and also Price is Right. This has got to eliminate the overbidding thing. I'm so tired of the person that bids the $1 over the last person and makes them mad. I mean, if the item is $1,000 and I bid 1,001 and Sam next to me bids 501, I should win. I don't care. If I'm $1 off, I don't care. But anyhow, I'll
dumb rule. It is. It's a dumb rule. I've always thought that. It's a stupid rule.
Just ruins the entire bidding process, and it's gonna lead to a fist fight on contestant row, and then something will finally get done. But I'm telling you, Drew Carey needs to be proactive, and they need to get that taken care of right now. And that's I'll leave it at that.
So Drew Carey is still hosting. I remember the Bob Barker days and Barker's Beauties, and I think Bob Barker's still alive, actually, isn't he? Right? He's in his 90s or something.
Yes, I believe that's right. From Happy Gilmore fame, yes.
Oh yeah, he was great in Happy Gilmore, wasn't he?
Greatness, but yeah, it's better than the mountain climber. What's the little mountain climber guy? Whatever the one that. But I've not seen
the game. I just noticed the game that's like
that's
the only thing. I don't know what it's called, but that's the only thing that comes to my mind when I hear that joke.
Yes.
Kevin, as you see that the talents of Kirk Haston are that they know no bounds.
Yeah, my lovely singing voice.
Well, actually, ironically, Kirk, 2 years ago, this would be Derby week. In a normal circumstance, and Kirk has been with us coming on for a long time. We were so grateful for him. But I think it was 2 years ago on the Friday of Derby week, we did something where we had all the IU people we could get a hold of pick their own Derby horse, and Kirk wanted to make his own up, and I'm like, well, yeah, sure. And then he named his own horse, and I'm like, well, how would that race go? And he did the call of his own race. Jake, do you have that? By chance, he calls his own race.
No.
I mean, the talent is unbelievable.
Well, the Derby favorite is, of course, Who Smelt It and Dealt It. But this is, I think it's because of this heart has such a big heart, and it's going to be it's not going to be the favorite, but it'll be one that gets a lot of action. Hearted, Hearted, and we're just going to really pull for him down the stretch. So we'll see how this goes.
How do you think it's going to turn out?
Well, I think it's going to go something a little like this. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's a beautiful day at the Derby. We're getting ready to get set, and they're off. Well, Hoof-Hearted is really sticking it up out of the gate, but hopefully they'll put out down the stretch. Man, I really am disappointed. Hoof-Hearted is pulling out. It's going past Charmin. Hoof-Hearted is coming down the stretch. Hoof-Hearted is around on Who Smelt It, Dealt It. Hoof-Hearted. It is unbelievable. People are throwing.
The comedy level alone is great, but the fact that you called that race, even though it was funny as heck, you called that race actually like you could call a thoroughbred race.
Oh me, I'm glad that didn't get passed around too much during the election in Tennessee. That might have undercut my chances a couple years ago. But yeah, when you called me and said that you needed a call for the Derby, and I thought, well, I could just give one of these horses that are in the Derby. I mean, everybody does that. What would it sound like if it was a little bit more lively? And so I remember a horse that was named that. Years ago, I don't know when I saw it. I think I was in college, and I heard that was the name of a horse that was in a random race somewhere, and it just always stuck with me. But yeah, I appreciate you helping that live on.
It is probably the greatest moment we've ever had. Just the comedy. But when you run for governor, I'll make sure it gets buried. Don't worry.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, actually, my favorite horse call was the one where it was about the wife, my ex-wife, my current wife. There was two horses.
Oh, yeah.
It was great. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Those are great.
Unbelievable. Hey, there's so much change going on. We talked about, all the COVID-19 stuff that you're dealing with, we're dealing with. Then the NCAA itself, they just today, the Board of Governors come out expressing support for name, image, likeness, the athlete's ability to profit off of that. Great changes there, Kirk. Someone, of course, a former pro player and college player. What are your thoughts on how they are going to implement this or manage that?
Yeah, I'm glad that there's something that's being announced with some uniformity, because what you were having were a lot of states, including some laws that were going through our legislature. I think we had 3 or 4 bills that were brought forth this past year, and one of them had come through my education committee that I'm on. And what you were going to have is, if you let that continue, the states that did adopt making it legal was just going to create really an unfair recruiting platform, potentially nationwide. And so it was I think the states knew that they had to just kind of put pressure on the NCAA, and once they saw that states were starting to band together and some of them were starting to do this, and that movement was taking place, that they had to get out and do something pretty quickly. And I'm not always the biggest fan of some of the NCAA's decisions, and they take a long time to get there sometimes. But this will be a smart move.
One of the, I guess, proposed changes is allowing actual boosters to be registered by the NCAA and sponsor athletes. How do you think that could that create advantages though for certain schools, or how do you have that and keep recruiting, I guess, equitable among all the schools, because that different schools have different booster support.
Yeah, I guess I understand what they're doing there. That might be part of it that I could see getting changed or removed. But if it is kept in, I guess one of the things, the way that they're looking at it is, a lot of this stuff is going on already. You might as well legislate it. I know we come up with that a lot of times in different. I think one of the most common arguments right now when you deal with states that are talking about trying to do some sort of legalized gambling is, one of the arguments that people will bring forth is that, well, we might as well work to control it and maybe even, and regulate it and make some additional money for the state, or make some additional money, I'm sure, somehow for the NCAA, by having some control over it. But it definitely could create some recruiting situations, but those recruiting situations are probably already in existence in the shadows.
Yeah, that's right. You're an SEC country. You know what they can do about that.
No comment. No comment.
Oh man, hey, I was reading a clip out of your book that the IU Press put up yesterday, Kirk, and there's just some stuff that amazes me. You still continue to learn, but the recruiting process for you was so interesting on how that went down with Tennessee, and it really makes you wonder how a guy like you got out of the state. But you figure that out after reading that stuff. But Vanderbilt, Tennessee, thought that they may have you, or you'd be heading there, but you end up in the Big Ten, which is the Big Ten was recruiting you pretty heavily. It looked like.
Yeah, I had a strange recruiting path for sure. Indiana was not the closest I got to being recruited. I think by Indiana was I walked past Coach Knight at the Memphis Steamboat Classic, which is a summer basketball camp. I walked right past him as I was walking into play. He was walking out of the gym. So that's how much on the radar I was at Indiana the summer before my senior year. But yeah, Ohio State, Michigan State, Purdue, I had to call Coach Katie, and tell him that I had chosen Coach Knight in Indiana over him, which was an interesting call. But yeah, I was originally wanting to just stay in the state, and Tennessee and Vanderbilt had both offered me scholarships. I was really wanting to go to Vanderbilt. And then the summer going into my senior year, Vanderbilt, pretty much, if not just right on the dot, just rescinded the offer and just was basically like, we're not interested anymore. And that was Van Bredikoff was the coach there at the time. And so and then Tennessee, they had different circumstances. They had just a lot of early commitments that had committed before me, and they just ran out of spots. And so Coach O'Neill at Tennessee at the time, Kevin O'Neill, contacted Coach Knight and said, "Hey, I think this kid would fit your system well, and you would like him. You need to come down and take a look." And it wasn't too long after that Coach Knight and his wife were flying down to Clifton, Tennessee, to watch a road game during our high school season.
Amazing. It was I just reading it, and it blew my mind on how, but it should never surprise me, because recruiting is always, if people knew all the backstories and the close misses in life, it's so funny. But I got to hear, you got to tell us how that conversation with Gene Cady went when you told him you're going to Indiana instead of Purdue.
Well, they to Purdue's credit, they were on me, quite a bit earlier, and had come down and see me, came down to a game, and they had offered a scholarship, and Indiana came in probably about probably 2 months later, actually. But once I had made the decision to go to Indiana, I'd always, a buddy of mine's basement, we'd go over and we'd hit a pool table and we'd play pool in there. And I had to get my, this is before, cell phones were really, in my area. We didn't even have cell tower forever. But anyhow, I had to, pull out the old calling card you used to keep in your wallet, and I told my buddies, I'm like, listen, I need the basement, and so they left the basement and went upstairs, and I was like, I got to make a phone call. And so I, get my calling card out and, call from his house and get Coach Cady on the phone. And I said, Coach Cady, I'm sorry that I appreciate the offer and the time that y'all put in, but I just wanted to let you know personally that I've decided that I'm going to go to Indiana. And there was just kind of this pause on the other end, and Coach Cady, he goes, that's fine, Kirk, but just know from this point on, I'm going to root like hell against you. And I said, well, I appreciate that. At least he was honest. And so, he probably somehow, when I was running for election, came down and registered as a Tennessee resident and voted against me or something. But anyhow, that was an interesting phone call.
That's hilarious. And he's, after the fact, he's such a funny guy. And I know back in the day, we all looked at him as, oh God, he's from Purdue, we hate him. He's actually a pretty cool, funny guy.
Yeah. He has a lot better personality than maybe what ever came through on television from a distance.
Have you talked to him anytime recently in the years that have passed?
I haven't, just kind of in passing, just back when we were playing, but not really any kind of substantial conversation. I sure haven't.
Well, man, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to join us. Kevin Brockway, you got anything else for Kirk?
Well, yeah, I'm just curious about, your thoughts about Indiana's past season and Coach Knight returning to Assembly Hall last February before everything kind of shut down. Yeah,
that was I honestly just got goosebumps thinking back to it when you mentioned it. It was a really special moment for me and also honestly for my wife. The school was great and made sure they were like, bring your spouse, and they just treated all of the spouses just like royalty. I mean, took them out and sat them on the front row during the ceremony at half court, and it really meant a lot to both of us. But Coach Knight was great. He wanted to make sure that he talked to everybody beforehand and got there, I guess, probably an hour before the ceremony. And we had a small gathering of former players and our wives back in the back where we were able to visit and sit down with him and talk and take some pictures. And he wanted to make sure to get all of the wives together. And so we got a good big photo of just the spouses with him. And he told us, he gathered us all around. He goes, boys, people ask me all the time about coaching you guys, and I tell them that it was the greatest time of my life, and it was a great honor to be around this bunch of, a bunch of guys like this. And he said, I'm sure when everybody asks how I was, y'all say the same thing. And I said, well, there's some good self-awareness there that he probably is enjoying, but it was great, and it was long overdue, and I just think it was very cathartic for everybody. And I didn't know how he would react or his family, but when I saw his face while he was out there, and I saw, his son Pat's face, and saw, the emotion in them, it really was very emotional and just very special. And it was one of my top 2 or 3 favorite moments of all time, easily on a basketball court.
Yeah, the emotion that Bob Knight showed when he was actually on the floor, it's like the crowd triggered in him that competitive spirit. It just came to life.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, the last, it would have been, I don't know what our last home victory would have been when I was playing, back in '99 for him, but you think back, it was some home game, some Big Ten game in 1999 that, it was probably right after he yelled at me about playing poor defense, but we probably got the win after, I made a bad play on defense. But the last time that he was on that court and fans were reacting like that, and he felt that energy and felt that, reverberation and just that, and just felt that court beneath his feet was, several years ago in 1999. So that was the first time since then that he's ever felt that, and it's just it's a very powerful feeling when you're standing on that court and you have those fans reacting and sounding like that in a game, much less when it's directed towards you as an individual. I couldn't even imagine what that would feel like. So it really. I don't think that he realized until the moment he got out there what that was going to feel like, and I think it really did hit him in a good spot.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. I think it was just a touching thing for everybody that was there. You talk about getting goosebumps. It was just unbelievable. And as a player who was there at the end with Coach Knight, how important was it to you to see that moment for him?
Oh, it was incredible. It's something that we'd really been hoping and working towards. I think a lot of players that are much closer to him than me, like Quinn Buckner, had been really trying to make this happen and make sure that it was something that was done correctly, and that's why. They really went to great lengths to try to make sure that it wasn't anything that, Coach, he only wanted to do it if it was surrounded by, if it was involving the honoring of a team that he was a part of. He didn't want it to be just about him. Of course, we all wanted it to be about him, and secretly that was kind of what we were wanting to do. But getting some guys on board and having Quinn, which was great, and Isaiah Thomas, which was incredible, and just he treated everybody great while he was there as well. To have them come back and just to make sure that Coach Knight felt comfortable meant a lot, and I just it just, I don't know, it was definitely a storybook day. And I think it would have been 2000 if the 99-2000 season. So it probably would have been in 2000 would have been his last home date. Now that I've actually thought about it, but anyhow.
Right. And you mentioned Isaiah Thomas. Right now, we're all enthralled by The Last Dance. Kind of takes you back. You were actually playing then, I think, at that time. Have you been watching that, enjoying that?
Oh yeah, I've it's been appointment viewing. Me and my friends have a couple of text message threads talking about it as we watch it, and yeah, I came in. I went into the league in 2001, so I did. Jordan came back and played with the Wizards while I was in the league, and me and when we played the Wizards in Washington, Jordan and I did combine for 53 points in a game one time. He had 51 of them, but I was one of one from the field. I didn't even miss a shot. I mean, he missed like 12 shots. Who can't score 51 points and miss 12 shots when you're 38 years old? But I mean, anyhow, but his energy and his level of commitment to competing. I just hope everybody kind of gets an idea of why he's held in such high regard as the best player of all time watching this. And I really appreciate how his interviews is what's made the whole thing. You could have all this footage, and if his interviews are just like, kind of cookie cutter, generic stuff, the documentary isn't what it is. But the fact that you're getting the true Jordan personality, and he's saying things, and whether you agree with it or not, I mean, he is just not holding back, and that's what's really made it special, is just getting his insight and his reactions, and from things like him seeing his mom read that college letter, and just stuff, you're just seeing him in a light that I don't think a lot of people have ever seen before.
Yeah, I'd say it's pretty safe to say that he and Isaiah are not playing golf weekly.
No, I don't think that they're sharing any tee times anytime soon. I appreciate that, because that is something that is so old school basketball. I mean, because you don't have I think everybody feels. I don't think anybody can stand Draymond Green, even his own teammates. So that might be the biggest rivalry, is just Draymond versus the world. But other than that, you just don't have a lot of guys in the NBA right now that are going to hold this kind of level of animosity towards somebody for infinity. And so there's something pretty great about that. And part of me always wished that Larry Bird and Magic Johnson hated each other, and they didn't, and their rivalry was still great, so it can be done both ways. But it is fun to kind of see. I wish they would do another deep dive. I know they did a 30 for 30 on the Bad Boys that was in like an hour long. I really could watch about a 3 or 4 hour documentary on the Bad Boys, because that group was crazy, and it was not fun basketball to watch, but it was entertaining nonetheless.
It certainly was a little WWE with the NBA. Kirk Haston, I cannot thank you enough, man. You are always so gracious with your time and with us, and always one of the best guests we could ever dream of having. But I hope everything is going well for your family, for your constituents, and everybody down there in Tennessee.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate y'all having me on.
This is Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary. Indiana Sports Beat is now a part of the Rivals Network. You can go to thehoosier.com to sign up. It's free. Catch the show there each day live or at your convenience. You can also like or follow us on Facebook, follow the show's rebroadcast, anywhere you podcast. If we're not on a radio station where you live, we should be. Let your local station know they need to carry Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary, or simply go to thehoosier.com.